Nobody in the world enjoys talking about a time where they screwed up. So, how the heck are you supposed to answer? Tell me about a time where you made a mistake. What's up, everyone? I'm Anthony Cofrancesco from Honest Careers, and today I'm going to be walking you through step by step one of the most common and also most tricky interview questions. Tell me about a time where you made a mistake. Now, you're going to want to stick around until the end of the video because I'm going to give you a couple extra sentences that you can add on to your answer, which is just going to be an absolute home run. And then whoever is hiring you, their jaw is going to drop and they're going to be like, we have to get this person on our team. So with that being said, I want to first jump into how you definitely should not answer the question. First is saying, I've never made a mistake, or I can't recall a time where I've made a mistake. This is definitely not the right answer, and it is going to indicate that you are not someone who's self-aware and can actually acknowledge or take ownership of the fact that they've made a mistake. Everyone has made a mistake. On the other side of an equation, the answer that you definitely also don't want to give is something that is super serious or it points to a fundamental character flaw about yourself. So saying, hey, sometimes I forget to set my alarm and so I'm often late to work, or something that expresses extreme carelessness. So one time I was on questionable websites on my work laptop, and then the whole company ended up getting a virus, and then company information was leaked, and it was a huge problem, and I got fired. Right? You want to stick to an example. It can be a serious example of a mistake, but it shouldn't show that you are a very careless person or it points to some fundamental flaw that you have as an individual that is unlikely to be overcome by the time they hire you for the job. So now what I want to do is give you an example of a really solid answer. And then afterwards, we will walk through step by step and break it down so that you can replicate this in your own interview questions. Let's jump into it. So in my first full-time role that I had, I was working as a loss prevention associate for Amazon. And one of the jobs that I had was managing the process of creating new badges for about 300 new hires. They were brand new to working at Amazon. And it was my job to create new badges for these people so that on their first day of work, they could actually get into the building and get to their assigned stations. And so I was going through and I was creating the badges, and I did the first part absolutely right. I put in all of the information correctly. Everything looked good. But what I failed to do is I didn't put about half of them into the secondary security system. And so that was the thing that actually allowed the building to say, okay, this person is good. They can come inside when they scan their badges. And so what happened was I was working up at the front desk. People started coming in, and then the guards started coming to me and started saying, hey, some of the badges just aren't working. And so I had that oh shoot moment, and I started pulling up the badges that didn't work, and I saw, oh my goodness, I totally forgot to put the second set of badges I had done the day before into the secondary system. And so these people were not going to be allowed to get in. So I had this kind of moment where I was like, oh my goodness, this is really going to be a big issue. Amazon is obviously super big on efficiency. They don't like any downtime. And so I had a moment of panic. And then I had a moment where I said, okay, this is a problem, but it is a fixable problem. So I took a deep breath. I was like, okay, I can fix this. And so the first thing that I did is I communicated. I reached out to my supervisor and then also two other loss prevention associates that were also working at the time. I sent them a ping on our internal messaging system and I said, hey guys, I messed up about half of the badges I didn't put into the secondary system. And so if there's any way you can come and help out, we need to get these people in the door. The second thing I did is I communicated to the other guard staff. These were the people that were actually working outside of the building. And while people were coming in, they were assisting with the badges. And so I got all of them together and I said, hey guys, I wanted to let you know that about half the badges don't seem to be working. We're working on getting it fixed. But what I want you to do is I want you to tell the associates that are coming in that we know that there's an issue and just stay calm. You're not going to get in trouble for being late. We're going to get you in the building as soon as possible. And then what I also had them do is to get all of the people that couldn't make it into the building into a side group. And they wrote down everyone's badge number or their name onto a sheet of paper that we had. And they were kind of keeping them in a group, right? So that we could get the people whose badges were working, we could get them inside of the building. And then the people whose badges weren't working, we could keep them in a group and we could keep an eye on them. And so very quickly, my help from the other, it was actually a couple people from HR and a couple people from loss prevention came down, and we were actually able to cycle the non-working badges. We were able to get them into the secondary system and then get them to their station pretty quickly. So the couple hundred people that were left over, we were able to get them in about 30 minutes. So it wasn't the end of the world, but it definitely was an inconvenience for them on their first day of work. And it was a pretty big issue on my end in the grand scheme of things. So the thing that I did after that, once we got everyone into the building and the situation had kind of been resolved, what I did is I looked back at that list of people who were late, and then I reached out individually to all of the area managers for the people that were late. And I said, hey, my name's Anthony. I wanted to let you know that I had an issue. I made a mistake when I was creating the badges. And for that reason, this employee was late to the shift. I just wanted to give you a heads up just so that they were aware and there wasn't any confusion as to what the mistake was. So that's where I will end the question for right now. But again, stick around till the end and I'm going to give you a couple extra sentences, which are the bonus. And this is a real way that you can make that answer even more of a home run. So let's walk through this step by step in terms of the different components of answering this question. So the first thing I did is I talked about the situation. I talked about my role, the company that I was working for, and what the task at hand was. This is really important that when you're going through the interview process, every time you really want to build out a story. You want the person who's listening to be able to visualize in their mind, okay, I can see Anthony, I can see the situation that he had, and this is going to really help them follow along as you're actually answering the question. The second thing I did is talk about the point of realization, that aha moment I had when I thought, okay, I've made a mistake. What am I going to do now? This is a little tip here, and this is what I call the deep breath moment. Anytime you come across this question about tell me a time you've made a mistake, this I think really helps you to be very relatable. And so literally when you're in your interview scenarios, I like to say, okay, I came to the point of a realization. I realized about half of the badges weren't working. So I knew this was going to be stressful, right? I was a little bit embarrassed, but I knew that this is fixable. So I took a deep breath. And then I really like to do that in the interview. I actually take a deep breath and then I tell them what happened. This is going to indicate to the person who's interviewing you that, okay, this person has a little bit of personality. They can really tell a story. They can walk me through the scenario, but they're also going to manage stress like a normal person, right? It's normal for everyone to get anxious. It's normal for everyone to have stress in this kind of scenario. And so when you can actually tell them about that physiological response that you had taking the deep breath, it makes you much more relatable. And the person who's interviewing you will likely be able to recall a time where they too were in a stressful situation like that. So I take the deep breath and then I tell them, okay, first thing that I did, this is so important. And what a lot of people will miss in this interview question is communication. And so the first thing I did as soon as I realized I made a mistake is communicate that the mistake had been made to the important stakeholders. So in this case, there were the people that were trying to get in the door, the new associates, and then there were people that were potentially affected, like their managers, and then also my direct supervisor and the people that I'm working with. In this scenario, it was particularly helpful that I could reach out to other people in HR or in loss prevention to actually get some additional people to come and help. That won't be true for every job scenario, but let's say you're going to be late on a deadline. I hear about people answering this form of a question all the time, and they're saying, hey, I made a mistake where I was turning in a report or I was doing a presentation and I missed a deadline. The thing that I'll consistently not hear people say is the fact that the minute that they knew it was going to be late, reaching out to the person who is going to be impacted, whether that's the client, whether that's your boss, and saying, hey, I wanted to let you know that this is the mistake. The project is going to be late. This is how much it's going to be late by, and here's my plan on how to actually fix it. Communication is so important, especially as we're moving into more remote and virtual working environments. You really should communicate anytime there's been a mistake, not only because it's the right thing to do, but oftentimes because once you communicate that a mistake has been made, your superior, your boss is likely going to come to a consensus about, okay, how can we allocate resources to either fix this mistake if it's important enough, or just say, hey, this isn't really a big deal, just keep going with it. But communication is always really important. So once I've communicated that, okay, here's what the mistake is, I've realized it, and then I want to talk about what actions did I take. And so in this scenario, right, again, I wanted to think of all the stakeholders in this scenario, in this situation. I wanted to communicate, okay, to the people who are coming inside, just wait, we're going to get them into a group so we can get them in seamlessly to the people that were coming to help me from HR to say, hey, this is the situation. We got to get these people into the secondary into the secondary security system so we can get them in the door. So I talk about the action plan that I take, the specific steps to actually get the people from outside of the building into the building. Now, if you've stuck around until the end of the video, I promised you a bonus, and these are just a couple of extra sentences you can add on to that question that is really going to make it a home run. And the person sitting behind the desk interviewing you, their jaw is going to drop and they're going to say, what do we got to do to get this person on our team? And this is all about going above and beyond, not just finding out what your mistake is, not just the point of realization, but what can you do to prevent others from making the same mistake? So in this scenario, what I would add on to this question to make it even better is I would say, so after the situation was all resolved, we got everyone into the building. I was talking with my coworkers and they had told me that, hey, Anthony, don't worry about this. This is something that happens all the time. People forget to put the badge information into the secondary system so the badges don't work. So I had an aha moment and I thought, well, if this is a consistent problem, something that happens all the time, what can I do to actually prevent other people from making the same mistakes so that it doesn't happen so often? So what I did is I actually created a Google Doc and I made a checklist for badge creation of new hires. And at the top of the checklist, here's the 3 things that are going to be really bad, or 3 things you definitely don't want to get wrong with badge creation. And the first one was double checking to make sure that the badge is already in the secondary system before you check the badge as completed. And so I put together a little checklist. It only took me about 30-40 minutes to put together. And then I presented it to my boss and he thought, this is the coolest thing ever, because now we can distribute this to loss prevention, we can distribute this to the guard staff, and we can distribute this to HR. And then before the badges are created, they've got the checklist right in front of them and they can make sure that everything that they need to do so that people can get in the building is done. And the end result of that was, after putting out that checklist, our building had very, very few misses, and certainly no misses as big as that one while I was with the company. And so again, this is not only saying, hey, I can make a mistake, I can be self-aware, and I can admit when I've made a mistake, but now I'm actually looking for what can I do on my team and in our organization to ensure that a mistake like this does not happen again. Going forward, the extra mile to adjust an SOP, adjust a process to make sure that that mistake doesn't happen in the future. So if you like that video, don't make the mistake of not hitting the like button down below. Seriously, it helps us so much for the YouTube algorithm. And let us know, what's the time that you've made a mistake down in the comments below? What other interview questions and career advice would you like to see on this channel? And thanks so much for joining us today.